Okay, this is for the season 1 update of Suicide Squad. What is this?
When Season 1 launches this March, you'll be able to unlock a new playable character for your squad, the Joker.
I'm the Joker, baby!
The original Arkhamverse Joker has been dead for 5 years, but this is a new Elseworlds twist on the villain.
He was part of the Suicide Squad in the Elseworld that he's from, which already shows that he's slightly more cooperative than the previous Joker we've had.
So he's not the Joker, right? He's just a guy. Oh, dude, those old school cartoons were goated. He was so hardcore. Oh, I forgot in that scene, he's just chucking the money at Lee. I forgot he does that. Yeah, dude, so the problem with all of this is like, now you start to see the patterns and everything where it's like, I want to be clear. This is cringy and this decision was made because Rocksteady chose to do it. Like, it's easy to point to Sweet Baby Inc. and be like, oh, they consulted on this, so it's their fault. But that lifts the burden on the people that actually made the decision. Like, Sweet Baby Inc. was hired by these people for consultancy, but they were not the final decision makers. Like, the final decision makers are the guys making the games. When in reality, like, everybody in the audience is looking at these decisions like this, like, what the hell is that? Why are we doing this? You sure about that? But they still choose to do it. At the end of the day, it still lands on the studio, you know? It still lands on the studio. And I just think, like, with all the craze right now with Sweet Baby Inc. and everything being that visible, it's important to remember that they consulted, which means they offered their opinions, and the opinions might have honestly been taken word for word directly from those consultants, but it was still like the decision maker are still in the studio themselves. So, you know, it can be easy to point to the boogeyman of Sweet Baby Inc., but at the end of the day, it's still the people that are choosing to go along with it that are ultimately responsible for taking bad advice. Because, like, if I am trying to find ways to invest my money and I take feedback from some 12-year-old on TikTok that's like, oh, what you do is you do this, this, and this, buy boob coin, and then you flip it when my Discord group tells you to sell it, and you do this and that, and then I lose all my money. Yes, it was that TikToker's fault that, like, that information or advice existed, but I still made the choice. Some of the blame, dare I say most of the blame, should still land on me, especially if I'm informed enough to know that that's a stupid decision to make. And in the case of so many of these games with some of these plot decisions and narrative decisions, there are just some baffling decisions made that anybody with any semblance of rationality or understanding of the gaming community, they could tell you that this was going to be horribly received and mocked incessantly. It's the same reason why it's always amazing to me with games like Forspoken or games like Saints Row Reboot, that those games launch and the writing staff, the directors, the developers are genuinely surprised when the reaction is really negative. They're like, we thought people would find whatever her name is in Forspoken really likable and like a go-getter. She's like a down on her luck city kid that's trying to figure out her life, and she has this cat and she's really witty and funny. Just no idea how she actually comes off to 99% of the people in the universe. I think it's because the people writing these games are like that and they don't really have friends, or if they do have friends, all of their friends are just as insufferable as they are. And so you end up with a game full of characters that no one finds interesting or likable or relatable at all. They might even find them actively detestable or annoying, which is just, maybe in 10 years we're going to look back and this era of gaming is just going to be defined by those baffling characters where you're like, how on earth did they not see that this was going to be so poorly received? Like, I feel like you go back into the early 2010s and we didn't have the same problem with really cringy characters. You might have stories with bad writing, you might have that, but the cringe is something different. Like, cringe is when somebody's trying to be one thing and they utterly fail at it. And so you're just like cringy. You know, it's like when a comedian gets up there and just bombs, or when like that discount Joker, yeah, like this is cringe. And this is what so many of these games are doing for their characters. And then they're genuinely surprised when you don't find it funny.
Wanna know how I got these scars? Well, I'm the Joker, baby. Hello, beautiful. Must be Harvey Squeeze. Boy, you are beautiful. Oh, you look nervous. Is it the scars?
Trying to be really scary, not really being scary. It comes off cringy. I want to give him a little, yeah, it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. Yeah. We've all been there, to be fair. If this guy's out there, I did some really cringy scenes when I was doing theater classes and stuff back in the day. So you better believe I've been there. I was just fortunate enough that it was not recorded. So let me be very clear. We've all been there. But like cringe as a thing is something that feels relatively modern in the gaming space, at least to me, or maybe it's just more potent now. But I hope we snap out of it. It's just, you would think after release after release after release of cringe being one of the defining factors in a game's failure, that these executives would kind of wake up to it and be like, okay, how do we avoid that? And yet they continue making the same mistake. And I think it's because they're so disconnected from it that they just trust the advice of these professional consultants who are like, no, this is really badass. People are going to love this. And then when the game flops, they're like, oh, that was weird. It must have been just a bunch of bigoted gamers or something. And it's like, I don't think that is what it is. When you dismiss the opinions of your customers, you shouldn't be surprised when you struggle to run a successful business. Like, and that's what all they do. Like every time you have feedback that they don't, well, basically any feedback that isn't positive, it just immediately turns dismissive. And it's just, well, no, you're just a hater. You're just a bigot. You're just this or that. And it's just not helpful. And you see the response is just generally very, very negative to the games. People don't like being called bigots when they just simply don't like something. He took my thing.